The difference between a tax mistake and tax fraud can mean the difference between paying penalties and facing federal prison time. When the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit initiates a case, understanding what constitutes tax fraud versus honest errors becomes critically important for your freedom and financial future. Every year, thousands of taxpayers face IRS audits and examinations. While most result in civil penalties for innocent mistakes, some cross the threshold into criminal territory. The Internal Revenue Service must prove willful intent beyond reasonable doubt to pursue criminal tax fraud charges. But this distinction often confuses taxpayers who find themselves under federal investigation. Tax fraud represents a fundamental breach of the tax system's integrity, defined as the willful and intentional attempt to evade tax obligations through deceptive means. The Internal Revenue Service defines tax fraud as deliberately falsifying information on tax returns to reduce tax liability owed to the government, making it a criminal offense requiring proof of intent to defraud. The legal framework treats tax fraud as theft. When someone deliberately submits false information on their income tax return, either to reduce the amount of tax imposed or to obtain a refund that isn't deserved, they cross the threshold from taxpayer negligence into criminal territory under federal law. Key elements that distinguish tax fraud from honest mistakes include willful intent to evade taxes. The taxpayer must act with knowledge that their conduct violates internal revenue laws. Deliberate deception, false statements or omissions made with awareness of their inaccuracy. Material impact on tax liability. The false information must significantly affect taxes owed to the federal government. Affirmative acts of concealment. Active steps to hide income, create false records, or mislead tax authorities. Examples of tax fraud include underreporting income, claiming false deductions, using fake Social Security numbers to commit identity theft, and hiding assets from the Internal Revenue Service. These actions differ significantly from tax avoidance, which uses legal methods to minimize tax burden through legitimate tax planning strategies. The IRS has established specific indicators known as badges of fraud that demonstrate willful intent. These include consistently underreporting income across multiple tax years, making false statements to IRS agents during examinations, and deliberately destroying financial records when aware of an investigation. Federal tax crimes carry substantial penalties under the United States Code. Understanding these consequences demonstrates why immediate legal representation becomes crucial when facing potential tax fraud charges. Tax evasion under 26 U.S.C. Paragraph 7201 carries up to 5 years imprisonment and a $100,000 fine for individuals, with corporations facing fines up to $500,000. This statute applies when taxpayers willfully attempt to evade or defeat any tax imposed by internal revenue laws. Filing false tax returns under 26 U.S.C. Paragraph 7206 results in up to 3 years prison and $100,000 fine. This covers making false statements on returns, supplying false information to tax preparers, or willfully helping others file fraudulent returns. Failure to file tax returns under 26 U.S.C. Paragraph 7203 can lead to 1 year imprisonment and $25,000 fine when done willfully. The maximum penalty increases substantially when combined with other tax crimes or when involving large amounts of unpaid taxes. Additional consequences beyond imprisonment and monetary penalties include restitution payments covering all unpaid taxes, penalties, and interest payment of prosecution costs and court fees. Supervised probation with strict financial monitoring, professional licensing consequences for business owners and tax preparers, damage to personal and business reputation affecting future opportunities. The United States Sentencing Commission guidelines consider factors like the amount of tax loss, sophistication of the scheme, and cooperation with authorities when determining actual sentences within statutory maximums. The IRS can pursue both civil and criminal penalties simultaneously for the same conduct, but these proceedings have different standards of proof and consequences. Understanding these distinctions helps clarify when criminal exposure exists. Civil tax fraud requires proof by clear and convincing evidence, a lower standard than the beyond reasonable doubt threshold required for criminal conviction. Civil fraud penalty equals 75% of the underpayment of tax due to fraud, plus interest on both the tax and penalty. Criminal tax fraud requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt and involves potential imprisonment along with fines. Criminal referrals to the Department of Justice occur in less than 2% of tax cases, typically involving substantial amounts or clear evidence of willful intent. The IRS may begin with civil examination, but refer cases for criminal prosecution when evidence suggests willful intent to commit tax fraud. Once criminal investigation begins, taxpayers should exercise their right to remain silent and obtain legal representation immediately. If you are under investigation or charged with tax fraud, immediate legal representation becomes crucial for protecting your rights and freedom. JacksonWhite's criminal defense team has extensive experience defending IRS criminal cases and understands both federal tax law and criminal procedure. Our attorneys recognize that early intervention can help negotiate favorable outcomes and potentially avoid criminal charges entirely. Don't face IRS criminal investigation alone. Contact JacksonWhite attorneys at law today at 480-745-1639 to schedule a confidential consultation about your tax fraud case and protect your future.